original member of this committee, and it was a big job to tackle, and I commend all those who've done a fine job in working on this project. But now I guess we come to the point that you know, some tough decisions have to be made, and I know y'all have the tough decision to make. I know this was an unfunded mandate. You know, the federal government, Congress passed this law, and we are losing a good radio system that has served us for many years, but it's time to make a move. And it's not y'all's fault, but you have to fix it. And we just plead with you to please help us out and make sure we remember these firefighters and these police officers. And I know you guys personally, and I know y'all will do the right thing, and thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Bob Carlson. I'm with the Ladysmith Rescue Squad. I've been a member there for quite a long time, and matter of fact, long enough that I remember when there was no radio system. So the county has come a long way. We can communicate. We, as a squad, voted at our last meeting to unanimously support the new radio system, the Motorola system. We feel it's unwise to spend money on a system and then from the little bit of research that I've done, they don't say when, but they could in the next 5 to 10 years narrowband again, and if we spend money on this system, what are we going to do then? We've just thrown that out the window. So we come supporting the new radio system. It's for the good of every citizen in this county. Nobody, the tax dollars that are spent here are going to help every citizen in this county, and especially it's going to help the fire rescue community, the career staff, the volunteer staff, the sheriff's office. I can't imagine being out as a deputy and needing help and not being able to get it. We many times have been out on calls where we have to go back out to the unit to use the unit radio because our portable radio won't reach out. And many times you don't get out on the unit radio. So we're asking the board to support the new, what we had consultants and professionals. I'm not that technical on the systems, but we did have people that are in the know, and we paid them good money for it, so we really ought to try to follow their advice. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please. Chief, how are you?
Gentlemen of the board, my name is Steve Parrish. All of you know me. I'm the fire chief at Upper Caroline Fire Department. I want you to know that I've been involved with fire and rescue in this county for in excess of 55 years. I started out with the Ladysmith Rescue Squad, and as Bob said, I remember when we didn't have radios. We organized Upper Caroline as a benefit to the community 40 years ago. I was elected chief, and I'm still the chief. And that's enough about me. I want you to know what I have been through, and what we need to have is a much, much better radio system. A Band-Aid on the system that we have is not going to cut it. It's going to create problems for us. Our paging systems are going away, especially up in my area. I'm far enough out that I've already worked through problems with hit and misses, and we've had some really, really scary moments. And I can say that because I'm a guy that was standing beside the truck with a radio when I had people trapped inside, and I couldn't get help. I couldn't get help. The system that you had proposed of band-aiding the system that we have into the single sideband is only going backwards. We have improved our vehicles, we have improved our fire gear, thinking of safety all the time, and we cannot operate with a radio that doesn't work when we need it. So I encourage you to consider the Motorola radio system. It's something that I've seen operated in other counties, and it seems to be something that we need here. I sent a letter to Mr. Taylor when I heard about this, and I hope that he has shared that with you, because I aired in that letter a whole lot of my concerns. And I just appreciate the board members considering the purchase of the Motorola system, because that's another step in safety, and it's another step in improving our system. Thank you much.
Thank you, Chief. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Teresa Pitts from the Sparta District, and I have been a volunteer EMT with Sparta Fire Department for many years, and I'm here to ask you to support this new radio system. Not only do we depend on the communications, the citizens of Caroline County depend on it. When they need us, they expect for us to be there, and we cannot be there if we have no radio communications. In Sparta now, our radio systems are not very good anyway, so we do have a hard time getting out. And as far as our sheriff's department goes, I feel like if they're here to protect us, we need to protect them as well as our fellow firefighters and EMTs. If we are in a situation to where we need help, personally, I want help when I need it. And not only if the citizens cannot get us to help them, we can't help ourselves either. There is just this complete stop. We need to be able to have communications throughout the fire departments, public services, the sheriff's department. We need to be able to work together, communicate with one another, to help each other. That's what we volunteer to do, to help save lives and protect each other, and we can't do it if we can't communicate with each other. So we ask you to please support this radio system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is George Bean. I'm from the Mattapanai District. I've stood before you before, expressed my opinions. I've also talked to many of you privately. I've also expressed them publicly. You already know what my opinions are. Tonight, I will try to address what I've heard to be the latest addition to this saga. 2 weeks ago, an emergency management conference held at a state of Virginia facility, Representative Harris Systems announced that he had submitted a new proposal to Caroline County for a 700 megahertz radio system. Harris had lost out its original Caroline County radio system bid that was $12 million, considerably more than the Motorola bid of $10 million. The new proposal for $2 million was based upon Caroline becoming a tenant on the Spotsylvania 700 megahertz system that they are contracted to build. It includes all mobile, portable, and fixed dispatch radios required by the county and the installation of one tower site in Bowling Green. All other coverage of Caroline County is to be from spillover from radio sites to be built in Spotsylvania County. Furthermore, the representative stated that Supervisor Seeley was on board with this proposal. There are several problems with this Harris proposal that need to be addressed. The shared Spotsylvania-Caroline border amounts to less than a quarter of Caroline's total border. Expecting enough spillover from Spotsylvania along this limited stretch in addition to a single site in Caroline is entirely ludicrous. The original $12 million Harris proposal included 7 radio sites to provide the necessary 95% coverage of Caroline County. Only 2 of those sites were anywhere near Spotsylvania. If sufficient coverage can be provided by spillover plus 1 site, Harris grossly overbid its original proposal. In fact, those 7 sites Harris originally proposed mirror the final Motorola proposal of 6. By the laws of physics governing radio propagation, it is impossible for Harris' announced plan to provide 95% coverage of Caroline County. In the last 2 decades or so, what is now Harris Radio Commercial Systems has had at least 5 owners that I can recall. It started out as GE Systems, located in Roanoke area, and absorbed RCA Systems when GE acquired RCA in its entirety. Eventually, GE sold the division to Ericsson, best known today for telephone and cellular systems. Ericsson kept the operation for the second longest period after founder GE, but sold it off to MACOM. Short time later, MACOM was acquired by the electronics conglomerate Tyco. Finally, about 3 to 4 years ago, Tyco sold the division to Harris, that merged it with its commercial radio system division that had been struggling for many years. This passing around of the division, especially in the last decade, left it far from stable. Many good people were lost along the way.
Mr. Bean, would you summarize, please?
Okay, I'm just about finished here. Lost along the way, as well as many of its core business values. Harris equipment may measure up after a decade of Harris ownership, but for now, they and their current business values do not meet the test. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Haber. I own a building lot in Woodford, and it adjoins the Mattapony Wildlife Management Area. A few weeks ago, I showed up there just to do a little work and discovered that directly adjoining my lot, within about 10 feet, a parking area and entrance had been built to the wildlife management area, a new public entrance. I wasn't aware of any plans to do that, so I called Caroline County and spoke to Mr. Nunnally, who told me that, I asked if there were permits or planning, review, public review, anything like that. And he said, no, none of that's required. It's a state-owned property. The county defers to the state in their review process. So I contacted DGIF, asked them questions about their review process, permits, review by law enforcement, zoning, anything. What was their review process? They told me they have a budget process. They review a budget. There's no sketch, no surveying. Somebody put an entrance in where it looked about right. It's my opinion that they had no idea that there was a building lot there. What I would like the board to know is that the county, as Mr. Nunnally said, the county defers the review process to the state. And I learned from the state that they really had no review process. They had, like I said, a minor budget review of this. That is it. And I would like to say that I've spoken to 4 people at DGIF, and they've been quite responsive, very polite, and so on. And they are addressing my concerns the best they can. But as a neighbor, having the state of Virginia as a neighbor, I've learned from this process that there's really there's nothing I can do when they decide to do something. And like I said, the county defers to them, and they don't review anything.
Before you go, Jeff, it was Haber?
Yeah, Haber, yes.
Okay. and trust me, I know how it is when you can't do anything because of what the state says. Would you pass your information along to Mr. Parton, your
Sure,
contact
sure.
number?
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to you directly, or have staff make sure we talk to you.
And I would like to add and I'll do that. I would like to add, though, that speaking with, I don't have any animosity towards DJF. I've spoken to 4 people there, and they have been very responsive, and they're actually taking my needs under consideration. And as far as the parking area goes, they've already resolved that. There won't be a parking lot next to my lot, and I forgot to mention that. The lot's kind of constricted.
Okay.
What it was looking like was that there would be a house next to a parking lot, when that is not the idea. And they are reviewing the road location. But
if you could just,
yes,
give
sir.
Mr. Parton your phone number, we just want to make sure the county keeps touch. Is there another speaker?
I'm John Stoddard from the Port Royal District, represented by Calvin Taylor. And I have 2 commentaries tonight. First of all, I want to fully support the funding of the new radio system. My next comment, I say with all due respect to you, Mr. Thomas, and to you, Mr. Underwood. I come before you, gentlemen, tonight with a concern of grave importance to this county and our country. As a citizen of Caroline County, I am saddened at the recent burial of a known terrorist in our county. As a born Virginian, I am appalled that this terrorist was brought like a thief in the night to be interned in our county. As an American, I'm outraged that some among us would aid and abet our enemy in such a manner. Gentlemen, you are now faced with a situation that has been thrust upon you with no prior warning or input from you, the governing body of this county, or the citizens of Caroline, or Virginia, or America. I trust you will not underestimate the role you are to play in this tragedy. As a governing body of this county, it is incumbent upon you to act as a fulcrum to right this injustice. To posture and explain that this is a done deal is not acceptable, and all means within our judicial and legislative powers should be brought to bear to remove the remains of this terrorist from American soil. You gentlemen, with the help of concerned Americans, need to pave the way so this injustice can be corrected and in future events like this will not be allowed. We all must realize that a precedent has been set with this action. If we are too feeble-minded to think that acts of terror like that which was brought on the citizens of Boston and America are an isolated incident and most likely will not occur again, we are just fooling ourselves. The fact remains that terrorism is part of our society today, and most likely there will be more terrorists that will die on American soil. What will we do as Virginians the next time they come as thieves in the night? I believe we must work on legislation to protect ourselves so this travesty will not be repeated in Caroline, in Virginia, or America. Please, gentlemen, don't shy away from this controversy. You have the opportunity, the moral obligation as a governing body to reach out to all players it will take to correct this travesty. I, for one, will fully support each and every one of you in your efforts to do this. If it takes 2 months, 2 years, or 20 years to remove the remains of this terrorist from American soil, it is a fight worth fighting. To do any less is simply an act of aiding and abetting our enemy. If we refuse to do our duty to meet this challenge, we are simply emboldening and empowering our enemy.
Mr. Stoddard, could you summarize, please?
Yes, I will. To do any less than to fight this fight, which has been thrust upon us, would be an act of cowardice. To do any less would be a dishonor to our soldiers who have lost their lives fighting the war on terror. To do any less would be a disgrace to our soldiers still on the front line and those ready to sacrifice all for our freedom. Gentlemen, if we do not do our duty to right this injustice, we should all hang our heads in shame. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there another speaker? Is there another speaker?
Just bear with us because you want us in a group.
I
So we're
appreciate
trying-
that.
Yes, sir. And as everyone's coming down, I want to thank them for showing up, and everyone that's come up that's spoken the support of the radio system. And Mr. Thomas, other members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm Tony Lippo, Sheriff of Caroline County, residing in the Bowling Green District. I guess we were kind of thrown for a loop that we see that it was in closed session that y'all met. And because it's in closed session, I'm hoping and praying as your sheriff, because we know had 3 of y'all split vote on this project. And I'm hoping to convince at least one of the 3 of you to come over to the side that we've heard everyone here tonight speak. Everyone has given to you what the citizens of Caroline County not just want, but need. And speaking about Motorola, because again, I look at this and try to keep it simple, of saying this is an independent consultant that says this meets the needs of Caroline County. There's so much stuff that's gone out. Well, again, you've heard from Steve Parrish, from Mr. Carlson and their age. Well, you know I'm the old goat of the sheriff's office. And starting with Henrico Police, they had Motorola. And I've watched them in the 4 years that I was to see on how Motorola worked and operated. And then to the Virginia Department of State Police. Again, Motorola system, to when I first became a trooper, you had to go through the dispatcher in order to find out if this deputy or police officer was right next to me and could have been. And Motorola increased, and they came up to the future to where in 1979 we were able to have that frequency where we then could talk in interoperability. And now the Department of State Police has gone to the STAR system. And you guys have asked for all of us, or at least the committee members that involved everyone in Caroline, to look into it for you. And I think that speaks volumes and speaks for itself. I thank Mr. Cully, Mr. Parton, J.D. Satterwhite, Mark Garnett, Chief Loftus, Major Moser, and who am I forgetting? I think I'm doing good. Well, again, I wanted to put that out there before you. I know they each have stories to tell you, and I did have a disc that I was going to play, as Lisa Harvey told you. And I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, because I had to get your permission to play it. I agree with you from a public safety standpoint. It doesn't need to be out in public. I want you all to listen to that, or at least try to make that out. And if you have any questions, more than happy to bring somebody to you. With that being said, I'm hoping everyone's going to come back here in 2 weeks to listen to your decision, if it's made then. And I hope and pray that that decision is made by what your board has recommended, or the committee has recommended for you. I will end that, and I did have something else for you, so I will go ahead and give you a copy of this.
You still have time.
That's good. I just wanted to give this.
So, he's got a group. So.
Very quick, though. Very quick, because when you're talking about the budget and where we are with some of the money, I'm just throwing before you from what we have, and Pam can make you some more copies of this. This is to show you, again, the situation that we have with our fleet. Right now, we have 16 cars that are over the county's plan to replace them, which means over the 125,000 miles, 120,000 miles. We also have 8 cars now that are over 100,000, making a total of 24. And I know you have all that planning, and as J.D. said, it's tough and it's tight. I felt what better time now to bring it before you because of what we're lacking.
You're piling on, Sheriff. You're piling on.
No, sir, I'm not really trying to do it. God bless you again. I'm just, again, giving it to you because as we patrol, you know, that mileage goes up. And last but not least, one of our 2011s already has 85,000 miles on it. So thank you y'all again for listening to us.
Thank you, Sheriff, and the deputies. Appreciate you all coming out. Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of the public comment section? Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of the public comment section? Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of the public comment section? We will declare the public comment section closed. Excuse me? Come right ahead. We're going to unclose the public hearing, so go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Supervisors, Jeff Southworth, Bowling Green District. As you know, I've been a volunteer here in the county for a lot of years. If you look behind me, the majority of the people here representing the fire and rescue are volunteers. You guys know that's a considerable savings to the county. I would just ask that you consider that, think about that, and when the fires are put out and the wrecks are cleaned up and we get to go home, give us a radio system where we can go home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Southworth. And we are now going to close the public comment section. Before we do a couple of responses, the Sheriff, I don't think you were here when we did our opening comments. I do want to say thank you, Major Mosier, on all the efforts we had this weekend, Friday, and so forth. So I do appreciate it. We had a chance to work together and, in a bad situation, at least present the county in a better light. So I do appreciate that. With respect to all of the comments, we are going to listen to the Sheriff's audio, but we're going to listen to that in private. Our waiver status with the FCC is we have to sign a contract according to the FCC by June 30th. We, without a doubt, intend to do that. We are currently, at this time, negotiating with Motorola. I personally met with Motorola yesterday. They sent me some information. Mr. Garner's here. They sent me some information late today. We're actually digesting that to make sure we've got everything. But we are negotiating with Motorola. That does not preclude us from hearing anything from our neighbors. So our neighbors may volunteer information. We are negotiating with Motorola. The technical committee did a great job in their work. They picked the system that would work best technically for us. We are struggling and wrestling with the idea of how to pay for that. And I'm sure you'll all understand that because everybody in this room is going to help pay for whatever we get, so we're struggling for how to pay for that. Somebody made a statement about people talking to Harris. While we were in closed meeting in front of the county attorney, no board member has spoken to Harris. So I'm not sure about reports from a Harris sales rep, but according to all the board members, I know I haven't, but according to all the board members, nobody's spoken to Harris. We fully intend to make our decision shortly. I don't think we're quite ready now, but we are extremely close once we finalize a couple of details we have. Okay? Having said all of that, our next agenda item is agenda item 4, which is continued discussions of options to meet the FCC narrowband mandate for the public radio system. We probably had discussion for a little longer in closed session than we intended. Is there any discussion that a board member would like to have now? Mr. Black?
Just have a question for Sheriff Lippa, if you don't mind. I guess my question is, of course, obviously, the cost of the system is quite high, but my question is, as far as the technical aspect, are you going to have to run this system, are you going to have to hire anyone else to run this system, or can you do it, is it all going to be done in-house?
We can all do it in-house like we do it now.
Okay, so there will be no new, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Seeley, anything you want to discuss on the radio system now? Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Chair, my only comment is that the board agreed that we would narrow band to meet FCC regulations. by June 30. And the question, as I met with Sheriff Lippa and Chief Mitchell, is how do we do that? And there are options on the table. And I think what I want everyone to understand is I don't take lightly spending any money of any taxpayer without exploring every option. I think that's why you elected us, to explore every option. And we are within the deadline, we are within the framework, but I think it behooves us so that when we vote on a system, you know, as a taxpayer, as an emergency provider, that we did our absolute due diligence to the nth degree to make sure we got the biggest bang for our dollar, we got the best system to ensure everyone's safety, and that we still are going to continue to make sure our system is one of the best that's out there. So that's what we're doing. And I applaud the board. I know we've had differences, but we've had some good discussion, and it's to ensure that we do what's best for Caroline County.
Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I do have some comments, and I certainly agree with my fellow board member, Mr. Underwood, in what he's saying about the good discussion, and good discussion is good. And I certainly support that always. I just hope that we don't get caught up into this fact of having blinders on as to say that regardless of what the information is out there, that we think that it's better for us to tie on to someone else. I've said many times before that when we can control our own destiny in Caroline County, we are much better off than allowing someone else determine what our future holds for us. One prime example is the regional jails that we belong to. We joined those regional jails, the Hanover, which is the Pamunkey Regional, and also the Pullman Regional Jail, thinking that was going to be the best avenue for us. Pamunkey, as you know, Mr. Chairman, you was on the board, is the fact that the state paid half of the cost if we became a regional jail. That's the reason we did it. If you look at today, Hanover drives the decisions made by that regional board. We have one member on a 3-member board. So Ashland and Hanover drives that direction. And I trust none of us will sit here and think that Spotsylvania is going to allow us to drive their decisions for their county in future improvements to the system. Caroline County, again, will be having to do exactly what Spotsylvania County decides they're going to do with their system. And I just hope we keep that in mind. I trust that we will look at the Harris system in other areas where it has been in place to see what the failure rates have been for the Harris system, if that's what we're looking at. And if we're talking about Spotsylvania, that's the system we're talking about. Let's be upfront about it. So I would trust that we would look into all of those things. I've heard much talk about research. I really trust that we will do some research and on the Harris system as well as the Motorola system to make sure that what we are looking at is apples to apples, and we do what is best for the citizens of Caroline County. Oftentimes, we may save a few bucks now, but in the long run, it's going to cost us many, many more dollars in order to be part of a system. So, again, I just ask that you consider that as we move forward, and I do trust this has been going on far too long, that we do pledge to make a decision on the 28th of May as to the direction Caroline County will go. And I trust that we'll pledge to the people of this county, to the volunteers, to the Sheriff's Department, that that decision will be made on the 28th, and a contract will be signed, whichever way it goes, and we move forward with the implementation process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to just start by saying thank you to each of the individuals who chose to come out tonight to speak to this very serious and very important issue. anybody that knows me, if you've been to the meetings, you know where I stand as far as the radio system is concerned. I believed in the beginning that Motorola was our best option. I still believe that. And I can say that because that's my opinion. I will also say that there are always other options. There are always other directions to look at. And I do know that it is incumbent upon the board to look in every direction that it can and try to come up with the best possible decision that's going to meet the needs of the citizens of Caroline County. And I can't speak for anybody else, but personally, I believe I've done that personally. And I'm satisfied that I'm sure of the direction that I would like to see the board go. I'm competent, or I believe that this board is competent, and I believe that we will do the thing that is best for the citizens of Caroline. So I know some people were a bit afraid, and there was a time when I was, but after tonight's meeting, I just believe that we're going to go in the direction that's best for Caroline, and I just don't think we'll let you down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The bottom line is we're going to get a new radio system. We will make a decision on what that radio system is and all the options and things. On the 28th is our plan. As I said, I met with the Motorola folks. I think we are basically done negotiating. We just have to digest the things you sent us and make sure we've got all our contingency plans in place. That's it. Okay. Appropriately enough, let's move to new business before we take a break, because this is going to be unanimous and real quick. But we would like to discuss the proposed contract amendment of federal engineering for consulting services related to the radio narrowbanding project. Federal engineering is the consultant we've used that you've heard so much praise about. We'd like to extend their contract because obviously we'll still need them for a little while. So, questions about that? Or Mr. Culley, did you want to make a statement about this since you and Mr. Parton are working directly with him?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you know, this contract was originally 3 parts, and we came to you back in the fall. The third part was for actually implementation, but due to the various directions that the study has gone over the last 2 years, we used even the implementation money since that time, and so we need additional money to finish out the coverage maps and things that we're looking at. Whatever direction the board wants us to go, we need to negotiate that with federal to move forward, and ultimately we'll be back once you pick a system with what the implementation costs will be for that particular system. So we would like to continue that. I think we've included that language in your packet. It's basically to continue the contract, and then once we give him some direction, then he'll give back to us a proposal of what that particular project would cost. So we're not really asking for specific dollars because we don't know exactly the direction we're going in.
But this doesn't include the information we asked for tonight.
He'll have to give me that cost.
Okay, we'll roll that in as we do it. You trust us, Mr. Muniz? You're gonna, I mean,
if we extend the contract,
we're probably going to pay you. Okay. All right, we do appreciate that. It's just the information we asked for. We had a kind of short time frame while we negotiate the contract to go forward. If you could help us, we'd appreciate it. Okay. We are going to pay you. I was just kidding. Just in case you take it back. So is there a motion to move forward with federal?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
A motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Seeley. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. May we take a quick break?
Good idea.
10 minutes? 10 Earth minutes? Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Reconvene. Gentlemen, we have taken care of agenda item number 5. We've got a couple of first readings. Mr. Fincham. First reading, and you might as well stay there. First reading number 6 is text amendment to add assembly. Second first reading is for biosolids. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next two items are first readings that have been referred to you from the Planning Commission. Item number one would be text amendment 09-13, which would allow assembly to be added to the list of uses in the B1 district. Currently, the ordinance allows processing, light warehousing, wholesaling, and other distribution establishments. In working with economic development and identifying potential uses of several vacant parcels of land, the question arose as to whether assembly would be allowed in the B1 district. Looking at the ordinance, we identified Section 3.6, which does allow processing, but does not allow assembly. And to us, it did not make sense that you would allow processing and not allow some type of assembly there. So the ordinance amendment, as recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, would add assembly to that category of uses.
Questions? Were you done?
No, I'm done with that one.
I thought that was the pause. Okay. Questions for Mr. Fincham at this time? What do we want to do with the additional language assembly? Move it to public hearing or have another reading? Questions?
I just have a question.
Questions? Ms. Seeley, go right ahead.
Mr. Fincham, we have other businesses, and maybe they're not in B, and this is just in the B1 district then?
Yes, sir. In the M1, this is not an issue.
So
Okay.
if it's M1, it's not?
We looked at the different definitions of processing, manufacturing, et cetera, and tried to find a way that we could argue assembly was already allowed, and because of the language, we just could not do that.
So with the word processing, does that mean milling and putting together then also? I guess what I'm getting to is this more like light manufacturing as assembly? Because,
no, sir.
okay.
You could argue that there's already a manufacturing component with the term processing. Okay? But again, because of the definition of processing in our ordinance and other reference materials that we looked at, it did not include assembly, and we just simply could not include that, even though we tried to interpret it that way.
Did I miss it, or do you have the definition of processing in here?
Yes, we do.
I guess I missed it. Okay. I was just, because the next step is, can I mill or change something in the manufacturing or assembly process?
And it is a special permit process, so it would come to the board.
Okay.
Mr. Underwood, do you have any questions?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Akers?
No, sir.
Ms. Taylor? No. Do we want to move this to public hearing with your questions or answers?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move, do we move this to public hearing?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Black. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Fincham, biosolids.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next set of amendments would be a series of amendments that would, one, create a definition for a biosolid storage facility. Two, would amend the RP and AP zoning districts to allow such a facility by special exception in those respective districts. And three, would establish development standards in Article 15 specific to that type of use, in addition to the other conditions and standards that you can impose as part of the special exception process. As proposed with the standards, there are only 16 to, I believe, 18 parcels of land countywide that would meet that minimum acreage criteria, which is 500 acres, and which you could meet the setbacks of 750 feet and be served by a road designated as a major collector or higher in the comprehensive plan. So in developing the standards,
we try to limit the number of potentially eligible properties as much as possible when drafting the standards.